In today's show, the Bathroom Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Camilla Thompson, and she's hailing over from the team at CaliberMind. And CaliberMind is doing something I think a lot of you guys who are listening desperately need. It definitely has been coming up a lot on the show. It's not that people want more data, but they want to understand it and get easier access to make it actionable. And that's exactly what CaliberMind is all about. It's a smarter marketing analytics platform. And today we want to really jump into what that means and how marketers can leverage it for growth. So Camela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really glad to be here.
Of course. So maybe give our listeners a quick overview. What is CaliberMind all about in your own words?
So like you said, we're a B2B marketing analytics platform, but what makes us really different is instead of just bolting onto your CRM and assuming your data is okay, and I think we all know the data is not okay, we connect to all of your source systems and we do a lot of work on the data before we analyze it. So things like deduplication, lead to account matching, a lot of data normalization, things along those lines that are absolutely essential to understand and leverage that data. So what we found is that it's not enough to plug into something and have a pretty report spit out. You actually have to really dig in and understand the nuances of the data before you can say, yes, this report is right.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, as I mentioned prior on a lot of shows, because we got a lot of marketers on the show, they sort of coming back to that point a lot that they're trying to find, and find ways to just get their data into one place and being able to trust in it. What types of organizations, what types of companies would you say typically benefit the most? Is there a certain sort of marketing spend that I need to have? Is there a certain traffic size that I should have? Like maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
So the interesting thing there is that you need to have the right personnel to translate the insights into next steps. So it's more about how much you're willing to invest in analytics in making decisions than how big the organization is. So we find typically that means 250 employees plus. And we find that the technology sector tends to be much further along in terms of data adoption. Generalizing, if there are other folks out there in B2B who want to work with us, we're absolutely happy to talk to you.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, who within the organization would actually bring that in? Does it come from an ops side because they just want to have a generic view on data? Is it actually the marketers themselves that want to bring it in? Maybe tell us a bit more about the champions within the organizations for CaliberMind.
So in general, we see a lot of variation, but in general, we see the executive and leadership team want high-level indicators that tell them which direction they're going, and we help quite a bit with that. A lot of times they're relying on their practitioners to be in their individual tools and understand the signals there so they can explain the trends that the leadership team is seeing. And then the marketing ops and analyst people are just in the guts of it, going into the details to verify what they're hearing from those individual practitioners. So for example, my digital marketer is very active in social analytics and website analytics. So marketing ops kind of helps verify the trends they're seeing and then bubble it up to me.
That makes sense. Now, how do these folks actually learn about CaliberMind? Like, do they, what channels do they go through? What's the customer journey look like? Or maybe in other words, what are the key client acquisition channels you guys leverage?
So we're going up against some pretty established vendors with a lot of domain authority, and that makes it a little bit tricky and we have to get scrappy to get noticed. So what we tend to do is through our podcast, the Revenue Marketing Report, we partner with a lot of B2B marketing technology experts who then share content and then actually make referrals on our behalf. We're lucky they do that, but it just organically comes out of the interactions we have on the podcast. Other ways we interact with people tend to be a lot of organic activity on social media. Some of us, particularly me, we're very active on social media and we're using tactics that aren't necessarily normal for B2B companies, particularly marketing technology companies. We tend to use a lot of humor, there's some satire, and then we do a lot of thought leadership in addition to that. So we don't want people to get bored. We want people to see value, and we also want people to laugh. I think it's very important as a marketer to read the room, look at the environment we're in, and frankly, how depressing it is, and then maybe do something to counterbalance that.
Yeah. Very good. Cool. So what role do you think the website plays? Like, in their journey, we've had obviously many marketers here, and the role tends to play like slightly a different role in every sort of journey. How do you think about the page? Like, what role does it play?
So that is such a great question, because we use our own technology in-house, and what we do is we can see through first-party cookies and then de-anonymization through Clearbit Reveal and our own technology, we can see who hits our page and which content when in the buyer cycle. Mm-hmm. And that really allows us to cater the content in those different places according to those personas. So what we've been finding lately, and we've been changing our website accordingly and testing and then changing again and testing, we found that leadership tends to hit the page first, and then they give the directive to do further research with the marketing analysts and the operations team. So we had to make a pivot. Originally, we were speaking to the people the sales team were in contact with first. Yep. Which was a mistake. I mean, not necessarily a mistake. They need the content too. So we have content made for them, absolutely. But those initial pages are product tour pages. Those all are going through updates or have been updated to speak at a bit of a higher, less tactical in the guts persona. So we're just trying to clarify and simplify, and so somebody can scan it and say, yep, this is what I need.
That's a very interesting finding. Like, why do you think that is? Because a lot of marketers try to identify who is the right persona, who should you write for, and it seems like it could be even a little bit counterintuitive of what you experience in the demo calls. How do you explain that? Like, why are these guys searching?
So I actually came from a marketing technologist background myself. So I was in marketing operations, and seeing that kind of forced me to recognize, it was really difficult for me to get budget. And it wasn't a priority unless it was a priority for the leadership team. And I was so busy putting out fires with the stuff that I did have that it wasn't up to me to kick off an initiative to prioritize that thing. There were exceptions, and there are times that we absolutely are speaking to a company because the marketing ops person sees a problem and is advocating for change. But where we see the most successful sales is when the leadership team identifies they have a gap and pushes downward to solve it. So we didn't pick up on it right away because of the demo interactions, but once we saw it and thought about it, we're like, duh, man, I'm so glad we have this report.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, as a result, our bounce rates went down, our page visits went up, like all of our metrics are in the green now. So it was definitely a good move.
Yeah, no, that is very, very interesting. And it's actually, probably one of the puzzle pieces why a lot of folks see such high, bounce rates and low conversion rates, because maybe it's just not the right persona that they're writing to. Very cool. Cool. What I'm curious about is now, like, what are other things that you've picked up over the years when it comes to, driving conversions and driving better performance from the website? Is there any tools, approaches, methods, updates that you've picked up over the years that you find very helpful when it comes to, improving the performance from the website?
I think the biggest thing, and this is something that's constantly evolving for us, and I wouldn't say we're all the way there by any means, but leveraging user interviews, being on as many demos as you can, and listening and recording the words people are using as they're talking about your product. Even if you're selling to marketers, you get too close to the product, and the language you start to use internally and matching with the rest of the executive team starts to stray from how you would have thought about it as a marketer at a different company. Doing those interviews is just, I can't emphasize, the language on your page has to be right. The other thing I learned that I wish I knew a little bit sooner was that a lot of companies are focused on optimizing for SEO, and that's great. But if you're in a space where there's a lot of incumbents that have really high domain authority, you're actually probably better off focusing on content people want to read and getting traction through social channels first, and then coming back and optimizing later.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very good. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like you're picking up a lot of like little details that I think super important and have a super large effect if you keep on repetitively doing them the right or the wrong way. Very cool. Now, I would love to switch gears a little bit. We talked a lot about what you guys are doing at CaliberMind. Now, I'm curious about your journey as a marketer. Could you tell me, like, where do you personally keep on educating yourself when it comes to marketing strategies? Keep on educating yourself, finding a new edge. Like, where do you personally get high quality information from?
So, I have to thank my background in operations for a lot of the analytics that I dig into, because I feel like marketing is very much a blend of art and science. If it was a matter of identifying the thing that works and just repeating it nonstop over time, we wouldn't need marketers. But because things are always changing and we're having to adapt, having the blend of the two is essential. So where I focused a lot of time was reading material from experts in the content marketing space. Andy Crestodina at Orbit Media, I believe, is one of the people. Neil Patel. There's quite a few podcasts, and I also pay really close attention to what's happening in the B2C space. So I think sometimes we as B2B marketers forget that we're interacting and selling to humans and not these kind of very logical entities that are companies. Looking at the B2C space and seeing how they're reacting to what's happening globally and in more locally is a great way to kind of figure out how to pivot your own messaging and strategy.
Yep. Very cool. As we're slowly getting to an end of the interview, I would have some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Yeah.
What is the last book that you read?
Mexican Gothic.
Mm-hmm. What is one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Product development. We have a new release I'm really excited about coming up.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you as a marketer would change for your role?
I would love to invent a technology to explain marketing data to executives, because I feel like there's usually a pretty big gap there.
Yeah. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
That doesn't happen a lot. I guess I'm really lucky. The social media video I just released kind of made me think I put all my eggs in one basket and may impact my future hireability, because the satire was a little extreme.
I mean, that seems you seem to be very experimental on that front, so it seems pretty good.
Yeah, it can be scary.
Very good. And for the very last question, right? If today would be your first day, right, after your formal education, heading into the world of marketing, what's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Keep focusing on the data. Like, the creativity will come, but you need to understand when to pivot and when to keep moving forward.
Camilla, I really appreciate you joining us today for the Platform Presents podcast. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about CaliberMind, what's the one thing that they should remember?
They should remember that we're here to help B2B marketers make sense of their data, and to check out the Revenue Marketing Report for more best practices.
Very cool. Do you have a domain for us that they can go to?
CaliberMind.com.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Platform Presents.
Thank you.